is also going to go on. It's going on Facebook Live, and I'm sure that they're going to save it there. So feel free to. Hi, how are you?
Hey.
Give me 1 second here. I'm just finishing up a little bit about Yesh Tikva. So what I wanted to say just is that for those of you who are interested in listening to Yesh Tikva, please go over and take a look. I'm sure they're going to be saving it there. And they have a number of really wonderful speakers talking about infertility and the effects on the community. And I highly recommend going over there and checking it out. But I, tonight, am thrilled to have Eli Weinstein here. Eli is someone who I connected with a few months ago, and the goal for this live tonight is to try to bring sort of regularly scheduled programming to all of you, because even though we're all in the midst of, a world crisis, the infertility world and the world where people are struggling with their fertility journey does not stop. People are still struggling, and how much more so that they're struggling in a way where they can't get the treatments that they needed. And so I will continue to run programming in addition to supporting everyone through the crisis. But Eli, thank you so much for being here. Please introduce yourself to the audience and tell them who you are and how you come to this, and then let's just get right into it.
Hey guys, my name's Eli Weinstein. I'm a therapist, and I practice in a clinic in Queens, working with all walks of life, young, old, men, women. And my wife and I went through a struggle and battle with infertility, and still continue to do that and have that issue. And I felt that it's so taboo and so stigmatized. And as a therapist, I said, I need to talk about this. This needs to be talked about more in more open forums, and help people through the struggle that they're going through on a day-to-day basis with this problem. So here
Absolutely. I am. Perfect. Okay, let me just let's do just a couple of technological things for a second. Eli, you're a little fuzzy. I don't know if that's my feed or your feed, but I'm gonna just check my feed for 1 second, guys. Hold on. Hold on. I'm just. Okay, just waiting for Eli. Eli, can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You're less fuzzy now, ish. Okay. Let's just start. This Simply Kate podcast is saying that she loves you, so I'm glad.
She's great. She's wonderful.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just launch right into this. Tell me. I guess I know you have your own fertility story that you've been public about through the that you and your wife have worked with PUA, but can you share a little bit about that background for the rest of us?
Yeah, of course. I asked my wife permission before to talk about this more openly. My wife has PCOS, and we weren't sure what that would actually mean, because everyone's PCOS kind of translates differently to how it impacts their infertility issues. And we were trying for about 5 to 6 months, 7 months, and realized that things were not going as planned, and decided to, instead of waiting, went right to a fertility specialist in a clinic called Fernie. They were wonderful. They were so respectful and really beautiful and nice.
You're located where, just for the rest of the...
I live in Queens. I live in New York.
Okay.
And so we went to Fernie in the Upper East Side, and they were so respectful. They took our insurance, which was so helpful because it can be very expensive. And we had 2 rounds. The first round failed, which was of IVF. IVF.
2 rounds. Okay.
The doctor felt that due to the fact that it was a mixed issue of my wife and myself having motility issues, it would be beneficial if we did IVF instead of trying with IUI, which could have been an option, but he felt that we should go right to IVF to have the best results. Thank God my wife, and I always say this on any podcast or talk I give. She's a warrior, and she was unbelievable throughout the entire process, which by no means was easy. And the shots were not fun. They were time consuming. They were painful. I did a lot of the shots for my wife because she's not very good with needles. And it was a very hard time for the both of us because I know for myself, as a religious Orthodox Jew, we're taught you get married and have a family. And it was very hard for us to have that battle and seeing all our friends pregnant and being in a young community having babies. It was a very difficult process. And after the first round that failed, we were heartbroken and destroyed. And it took some time to get back on the horse, but with timing and everything, thank God, things worked out and we have a beautiful baby now.
Wow. You know, it's, you know, when people talk about their stories and like, you know, when you have a happy ending at the end, it almost seems as if, you know, everything that you did to get to that point was sort of worth it because you have that happy ending. But when you're going through it, you don't know if that happy ending is ever going to occur. And so,
even during the pregnancy.
Correct. Even during the pregnancy, because we all know, I mean, even if you're not part of this forum, we all know the reality is that once you get pregnant, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be holding a baby in your arms 9 months later. So yes, yeah. It's a petrifying feeling, not knowing, not having that certainty. And so how did the two of you sort of deal with that uncertainty? And how did you, you know, get through the times when, you know, when things failed, and then, you know, what did you need to do? What did the two of you need to do? And what did you need to do individually to sort of get to that point where you got yourself ready to try again?
There was a lot of crying, a lot of love. It was very interesting. I expected, and I know in the work that I do with PUA as part of their support team and as a therapist who works with some people who are struggling with infertility, sometimes it can really rip apart a couple and really cause a lot of tension and fighting and frustration and resentment, and which makes total sense. But for us, I do believe it made us stronger. We learned that this kind of pushed us a lot farther in our marriage to become each other's rocks and supports that we didn't know we could be for each other because we weren't put in this position before in our marriage. You know, when things were really rough, we relied on our family and the 2 or 3 friends that we talked to. And I would say the reason why I got into talking about this is because I did feel that my wife had all this wonderful support backing her through Instagram accounts like yourself, through other friends who went through the same thing or similar things with infertility, through Facebook groups. And for me, as a religious male and a male at all, I didn't find that in the infertility community for men. And it is an issue for men just as much as it is for the woman, whether the issue is with the man or it's with the woman. And because you're involved in the process, it affects you just as much. And it was very frustrating, and I felt very alone through the process. And my wife was unbelievable. She did an amazing job. Not that she didn't help me at all, but I felt alone as a man through this process and everything that I was going through.
And so first of all, I just want to say that is a very common thing that people in the sort of the helping community, and, you know, as a you know, social worker yourself, that there, as a therapist yourself, that we in the helping community, we see over and over again, and I see in this account, because I've done numerous polls in this account, you know, 98% of the people who follow me are women. The support groups, when I sit around, when during conferences, virtually or in person, the way we used to do them, when we sit around these conferences and we talk as a community, as a fertility community, we talk about the individuals that we're helping. Obviously, it takes 2 people to make a baby, but all of the help seems to be focused towards the woman. And what we found, and what and it's come, and this is also on the law side as well, where there's a lot of support that is specifically directed towards the woman, but we know that when a child dies, when a baby dies, when a pregnancy doesn't come to fruition, that baby was also a baby of a man and a woman, and also parents and grandparents. So it's many people in the family. And what we found was that men just didn't want to come to the groups, that they, felt like, no, I'm fine. I have my sports, I have work. Like, I don't need to talk about this. Like, there was actually, I remember when I was working for Nechama Comfort, we sat in one of these like planning meetings with a number of other organizations. And like one of the organizations actually said, like, I think what we need to do to get men to come, because we know the men are hurting also, I think we need to have like one of these meetings in a bar, because if we have it in a bar, then the men will come. Otherwise, they're not coming. And like, so tell me, like, how were you helped? How were you reached? How can we reach the other half of this community?
So I find it interesting that when I started posting, I know I struggled even after my baby was born. I struggled with being a dad and men's issues and fatherhood. When I started posting about this stuff more often, I would get messages on social media saying, wow, thank you for sharing this. I'm going through the same thing, or I went through the same thing, or I have 10 friends who are going through infertility. Can they reach out to you? It was just about talking about it. And it really surprised me that it sounds so simple that it's just talking about it, but really it's about giving an open forum and recognizing the support for others. I remember there was a Yesh Tikva event at the shul I was involved with during our infertility journey, and it was at Shank in the Washington Heights. And they had a panel discussion for infertility, and I would say that 3 out of the 4 couples, the main issue was the men in the couple who had to have surgeries and sperm extractions and very invasive procedures. And it really opened my eyes to think, wow, it is for men too. And I find it that I think, hopefully, I really, really hope and pray that by doing these things more often and talking about it more often, being open about it more often, having panels and forums to show that the men are not alone. I remember right after that forum, I reached out to those 3 guys and had a discussion with them privately through either Facebook or a phone call conversation or texting about what they went through and how they dealt with it, because that's what I needed. Another man to say, I see you, I hear you, I understand your pain. We'll get through this together. And that's what really helped me a lot. Amazing.
And just for everybody to know, just from a factual standpoint, there are, what we know in terms of the percentage of, when we're talking about sort of which the man or the woman, in terms of which side sort of is at fault or sort of has the issue with infertility, 50% of the time it's the woman, and 50% of the time it's the man. So we know that, and everybody just assumes colloquially that, if you're going through fertility issues, that it's the woman. And the reality is that 50% of the time it is the man. And I think like just to, and you're absolutely right. I mean, one of your friends who runs this podcast, Simply Kate, she was just saying, yes, that, bringing more attention to this and being an advocate about this can make such a difference. And that's absolutely correct. I mean, there are a number of other, and I can tag them afterwards after we finish here. There are a number of really great Instagram accounts and podcasts that specifically talk about the male angle of infertility. I'm sure you know of some of them as well, and they're really great. But I want to have you, while I have you on here, there are a number of questions that came in. So I mean, one person just said like azospermia, which means basically no sperm. How does the man feel, and how to support them, while they're struggling? I mean, I think you really answered pretty much that already. Is there anything more, like, I mean, can you just talk about how you felt? Because I think that this is also relevant. How you felt, like, yes, you knew your wife had PCOS, but then, and you thought you were going into the reproductive endocrinologist because of your wife's issue. And then you get there, and then you find there's motility issues on your side as well. How did that make you feel?
The one word that I would say was two words would be failure and shame. I felt, and this is a very big ego thing, and as a man, I felt it was my, the woman is built and created to get pregnant and hold a baby and give birth and work through that process and do an amazing job and do the best that they can. That's their role for the reproductive process. And as a man, I serve a role as well. And I felt that my role in the marriage, I let my wife down, I let myself down. Our future family could potentially be let down, that we might have to adopt and might not be able to have children that are biologically ours from our creation. I felt frustrated. I felt totally at a loss, because when I was going through chassan classes and I was being taught as a kid,
sorry,
no one.
Sorry, just
Yeah.
for 1 second, I'm just going to clarify, just because we have lots of
Sorry.
people here from different audiences. So chassan classes, meaning
This is groom training.
Right. So it's training to, when you're in the Orthodox community, as part of the Orthodox Jewish community, there are a number of different laws in terms of ritual purity that the man and the woman learn before they get married. And so chassan literally means groom. And so the groom gets sort of this training, and the bride, the kala, chassan and kala are the Hebrew words for bride and groom. They get this training to learn about these ritual purity laws. Okay, sorry, go.
Thank you. No. Thank you so much. No one talked about this. No one said, "Oh, by the way, it might not work out as you planned, and this might be one of the hardest things that you go through as a couple." It was more of like, don't go to bed angry, and here are the laws of purity, and here are the laws of this, and all the details and minutia of a marriage and the religious laws. But what I felt, and this is something that I really want to convey, is that even at the doctor's office, it was all about the details and biologics of how it works and timing and the cycle and the medication, but the humanity of it, I felt was lost, because it is two humans who are complex and dealing with this issue together. And my wife went through her own emotions, and I can't speak for what she went through, even though I do know, but that's not for me to say. But for me, I felt that I failed as her husband and as a man. And if a guy is going through that struggle of not producing any sperm whatsoever, that's what I would feel. That didn't happen to me, but that's what I would feel, is that failure, is that, well, what now?
Right.
So.
And was there any other, besides obviously finding other people and having that resonance and knowing that you had this community, was there anything else that really helped you in during those moments, during that time?
I relied on two things per se. I spoke to a friend of mine who I know was going through it, one of my best friends and mentors. And by talking to him, I actually found out more people who I didn't know were struggling with this, to make me not feel alone. And I also journal a lot. As a therapist, one of the things that I try to promote for anxiety, for depression, for self-esteem, is that if we hold it in our hearts and our minds, it has nowhere to go, and all it does is ruminate and repeat itself, and it can be very damaging and hurting to ourselves and everything that we touch and do. So I tried to get it out of my head, because at a certain point, I love my wife to pieces, and she's the best thing that ever happened in my life. But it gets very hard to continuously talk about that and cry about it and fight about it and be frustrated about it together. I needed to have my time to process it. So journaling was my way of getting it out, to process it on my own, to put it on a piece of paper, and be able to make it actual, that the thoughts were real and that I can just see it and not have it just jumbled around in my mind.
Amazing. And journaling is such a powerful tool, just as exactly what you said, for anxiety, for depression, for really anything that's bothering you, to have it. Gives it a space. It allows it, exactly as what you said, it allows it to go from here to here, and so it releases that piece. It allows you to put it somewhere. It doesn't change your issues, and it doesn't change your reality, but just by virtue of sort of taking it out and there's also this process of trying to get your thoughts onto paper also is a very therapeutic way of releasing tension and releasing stress. So it's an amazing life skill. And thank you so much for sharing all of it, sharing that piece for all of us, because it's so applicable to so many things. Okay, let me go further and ask you a few more things here. Okay, my husband has male factor infertility and barely opens up about it. We have a very open relationship, but I just don't know what to do, because what do? Do I just accept that it's something that I can't help him with? Or do I try more and try to understand? Like, do I try to draw him out? Like, what would you say to this woman who, you know, who's living with, you know, her beloved and feels that he's not opening up? What would you say?
So the struggle with men, and I'm not trying to generalize here, I feel like I'm a very in touch with my emotion kind of guy, but most men are pretty in their cave, hidden, introspective, very hard shells to break. Whoever's asked the question is the only person that really knows her husband and how far that she can kind of push that boundary, because the only thing that she can do is she cannot be in his shoes. But the only thing she can do is be supportive that when he is willing to talk, when he is available to open up, that she is there, 100%, totally honed in, focused, ready, non-judgmental, not trying to fix it, not trying to solve a problem, just be there for him. And it might take a while. It might be the most random time that he turns over and says, you know what, honey, or whatever you call your wife, this is terrible. I don't know what to do. And cry and scream and, you know, whatever emotions come out, it's to be there when that happens. But you know how far you can push your husband. When he's ready, he'll come. If he's not ready, you cannot rip that open, because it's for him to let that out. It's not your job to rip it out of him. It's for him to come out and do it himself.
Absolutely. I think that that's great advice. And I know personally, whenever I've dealt with couples who have difference of opinions in terms of the way they grieve, or difference of opinions in the way they deal with really anything difficult in their lives, what always happens is, you know, the person who wants to talk and the person who's more emotive and the person who's more verbal is the one who's constantly sort of badgering the other one to talk. Come on, you need to talk, because that's the way they handle things, and they think that that's what's normal. But the reality, or that's what's normal for them. That's the reality. It's not that is the only way to handle stress. And so what I always say to people is exactly what you just said, in that when people are ready, you have to be there, and you have to be this open receptacle and be ready for them to share. But they may not be ready to share ever, or they may not be ready to share right now. And so it doesn't mean that the relationship needs to have some sort of chasm in the meantime. He, even though he's not willing to share right now, still needs to be available for you when you're emotional and you're verbal and you need someone to dump to. But you also need to support him in that you're not pushing him all the time, and you're not saying to him, like, you know, you clearly must be struggling if you're not sharing, and you clearly must not be handling this well if you're not sharing. That's not what it's about. It's about communicating each other's needs, and it's about meeting each other where the two of you are. And so I loved what you said. I love that also. Okay, I want to try to get through some more here. Another follower said, what are some coping mechanisms that men can deal with in terms of, what are some coping mechanisms to deal specifically with the loneliness and not being able to do some of the things that they normally use to distract themselves, specifically now at a time where things are, you know, everyone's really closed off in their own home and can't get out and can't distract themselves the way they used to before. And what do you say, like, if you could get out, or what are some techniques besides the journaling and besides the talking, if you know, if that's relevant for you and that's helpful for you, what would you say that would be helpful to try to move through some of these feelings?
Mhm. So it's a great question. I'm getting this question by all my clients right now is, well, what do I do now? We've worked for months on, taking walks, exercising, finding I call it a coping card. We work on like a 3x5 card to write the formula that helps each person with their specific issue. But none of it applies now because we're all stuck at home. So it's a very big struggle that a lot of us are dealing with, myself included, for everyone's issues. So that, first of all, is a big struggle. What I would say is that you need to find a safe space in your home, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a house, wherever you live, that is your quiet time for you, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I really believe this. If you can't
An
find
hour.
an hour, good luck. If you have children, maybe it's longer. Hide yourself in the bathroom. But what I would say is that I really believe this. If you can't find 5-10 minutes for yourself a day, something's really wrong, because everyone can have 5-10 minutes for themselves quiet, whether that means closing your eyes, searching through social media. That might not be helpful, but for some people it is, whether it's playing a video game on their phone, whether it's reading a book for 10 minutes. We all know what we like and what helps us. So the question is a very great question. The hard thing for me is that I don't know who's asking it and what their specific likes and dislikes are. But what I would say is that you. I know for me, music is one of the biggest things that help me. So I invest in headphones to, like, the noise canceling, to drown out the noise of life. So if I'm having a hard day, you can ask my wife if you want. I put my headphones on, play either classical music or whatever I'm into that moment for 5-10 minutes. That's my time. That's me being there for me. For me, sometimes it's exercising. I happen to love, if you've been following my Instagram, I love tea. I invest a lot in tea because it's very calming for me. It's something nice and warm, and sometimes it's great with ice, but it's my thing. I love it. So find what makes you happy, because even with the pandemic that's going on nowadays and we're all trapped in our homes, you can still go for a walk for 5-10 minutes, whether it's in your backyard, in your area. Of course, stay 6 feet away and be health conscious and all those things. But what helps you. So find those things and still use them. Whether it's blowing off some steam by doing a Zumba class in your house, or dancing around to some music to dance it out. If that, blowing off that steam, whether it's doing some jumping jacks or push-ups or sit-ups or something to blow off steam because you can't go to the gym, do that. But find what makes you and what makes you happy.
Absolutely. And I love that idea about the 3x5 card, because I always, when I'm working with people, I tell them also, I'm like, you need to make your list. I give them homework. So I say, here's your homework. Your homework is you need to come back to me in 3 days and you need to make a list. I want a list. Yeah. And I also tell people who are observant, you need to have your distractions list for during the week, and your distractions list for Shabbos or for a Yom Tov, times when you can't use electricity. And I think that those kinds of things are even more important now. And those lists now need to be expanded, because the top 5 things on my list don't exist anymore. I love to go to the gym. I love to get out. I love to walk. I live in an apartment, and it's actually very anxiety producing for me to leave my apartment, because I have to go with the stairwell, I have to deal with an elevator, I have to deal with doors and handles. Being in a house, it's a little bit easier to get outside right now. So I've had to expand my own personal 3x5 card. And I would suggest to all of you as well, okay, you may have had those beforehand. You may have had those lists. Expand your lists now. And now order. Yom Tov is coming in 2 weeks. You can't get outside your house, then order. Amazon is not delivering very much anymore. So there are lots of other places that are still delivering. There are 3 days that many of us are going to be alone and in our homes without the distractions of electricity and technology. Make sure you have your distractions and you have your list ready to go, so you're not searching for them.
On that note, my wife and I are getting ready for the holidays for this exact thing, so we don't go insane, we don't lose our minds being trapped, because that is a very anxiety ridden thing, and it is getting to a lot of us, myself included. We ordered from Barnes and Nobles. I'm not sponsored by them, but we're ordered by Barnes and Nobles, and we got puzzles and we got books that we knew that either we both would like, or that we could swap books at the end of the holidays or during the weeks, just so that we had something to rely on that was a little different and a little new to kind of give a little spice to the books that we already have that we might not be so excited to read at the moment.
Amazing. Amazing. And I know personally, like, I found things on my bookshelf that I forgot about, I haven't seen in 10 years, and I was excited to read again. So
I agree with you.
Okay. Another question. I try very hard not to see pregnant women because it's too upsetting for me, even in the street. And when I do see them and I get upset, how should I deal with it? I mean, obviously, we're all staying home a lot more now, but there's still social media, there's still the internet, there's still all the things that we're all watching on our electronics, and we are all trying to get out and get fresh air, and we could see people in the street still. So and this is specifically, a question coming from a man, not coming from a woman. So what are your thoughts about that?
I can really relate to this, and I'm getting a little choked up and emotional thinking about it. When we were in our community, very young, we were in the YU area in Washington Heights, Yeshiva University in Washington Heights. A lot of young couples, newly married, different religious levels regarding contraception and the laws and how fast they got pregnant and all these other things, infertility issues. It was very hard to see others at weddings, to see others at synagogue, around, holding hands, being there for each other. It was this beautiful, loving thing, a goal that I remember saying, I am never going to get that, and beating myself up, seeing this beautiful, magical thing that I didn't have. The suggestion, and I totally hear that, and I understand that feeling, and it's not fun, and it is really hard to swallow. But what I would say to do is that the hardest thing with this whole situation we are in now, whether it's with Corona or with infertility, is the idea of comparison, that we're looking at other people where they're at in their life and where we are in our journey. Now, this is, we're not on the same level by any means. You, me, everyone around in their windows, in their apartments, in their houses are on totally different journeys. It's about being able to be focused on where you are at right now versus where they are at, because we don't know what's going on behind closed doors in that person's house. I know a friend of mine who struggled for 10 years with infertility, and I didn't know their story until a little later, but I saw them with children. I saw them pregnant at that point. I didn't know they went through 10 years of infertility. I didn't know the struggles they went through, but I saw them pregnant and got jealous and got frustrated and got angry, when in turn they were going through their things for years. So what I would suggest is that accept those feelings, appreciate them. They are normal, they are human, they are real. Take them in, but try to learn how to focus your attention on yourself and what you can do for your life right now. Other than that, everything else is out of your control.
Absolutely. I think that that's spot on advice, and it even ties into, the one of the other questions I got was, tips about living in the moment and not stressing about the future and not thinking about the future. I mean, that's just spot on advice, because we only know what our life is right now, and we don't know what the future will hold. And we also don't have a window into seeing what other people have struggled with before or what other people have gone through. And I think that just focusing on the day to day of, today I'm here, today I'm healthy, today the sun is shining, today I can get outside, today I have toilet paper, today I have food to eat. I think, like, focusing, like, yes, are we going to have a toilet paper shortage in this country? I don't think anybody knows. But the fact that you have toilet paper right now, that's a good thing. Yeah, go ahead.
And I think the point that you're making is so profound and wonderful. And to add on to that, social media is not a good litmus test for looking into someone's life. I'm a believer of trying to be as honest as possible on social media and post pictures that are, real and honest. But, someone asked me, oh, how could you be in this place and that place today? No, I wasn't. It was weeks ago and I took the picture. But, it's a good picture. So if we see someone and they look like they're on this beautiful vacation, or they look all put together and wonderful, and the angle's right and all these things, and you look at them and say, wow, they have this life and that life, and I can't do this, and I'm stuck in my house, and I barely have toilet paper, and all these things that you start getting in that rabbit hole. Just realize that that is not a window to someone's true life, which then you then end up beating yourself up about because you think that's really real.
It's amazing. I think those are the pitfalls of social media in general, where we compare and compare and compare. And I think the beauty, and I can't believe I'm saying this because it's such a difficult time, but the beauty of living in, this moment right now is that I have seen a lot more kindness, and I have seen people really like giving more of the benefit of the doubt, and people being much more gentle and caring about other individuals. And it's going on in my community. I'm sure it's going on in your community. We are all struggling with so much right now. And while yes, the fertility community is one that struggles all the time. And so this piece is just another added layer to it. But the notion that even in those times, people can be gentle and people can be caring, we can add that on here too. And we can all just try to, one, take care of ourselves in the best way possible, and also try to give the benefit of the doubt to everyone else, that everybody is struggling. We're all in the same boat at this point, and we're all trying to make sure that we stay healthy and that our loved ones stay healthy. And so we're all just trying our best. And I think that's really the piece to sort of carry with us today.
And it's really interesting that I think in our lives, this is the first time that something has affected the entire world, no matter who you are, where you come from, what race, ethnicity, religion, culture. It makes no difference. The world is coming together, and I really do agree with you. And I was talking to my wife about this yesterday, that in this dark time, it is so interesting the lessons we are learning about patience, ourselves, the community that we live in, people shopping for other people who are immunocompromised, people who are giving out extra toilet paper that they have because they have a surplus and they bought a long time before Corona came into existence. People are showing the humanity and the support and love that should be all year round and all the time. But it's really nice to see it when the darkest times it's happening right now. So I do agree with you.
Absolutely. Ellie, thank you so much. This has been, I know, incredibly warm and supportive and extremely helpful for so many people. Just based on the comments that have been coming in, and I know that lots of people wrote in beforehand how they were really very much looking forward to this live. And not only did you give like really practical and wonderful feedback in terms of people who are struggling with infertility in general, and specifically male infertility, but just as a voice of calm and a voice of reason during this just unusual and the words are escaping me. There's really there are no ways to describe what all of us are going through right now. But I so much appreciate having you here and having your wisdom here for all of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a huge pleasure. And I hope, I just wanted to thank you for doing all the work that you do, and what an amazing job you have been supporting so many, throughout their infertility struggles, and especially now with people's infertility cycles being canceled, and it's just so hectic for so many, and especially the infertility community. So I really do appreciate all that you're doing and how much love and support you're giving to so many.
I think we're all just trying our best, right? That's really the bottom line. We're all just trying. Ellie, thank you again. If anybody wants to reach out to Ellie, they can find you directly through your handle. Have a wonderful Shabbos, everyone. I'll post the link to this. This will be live for 24 hours, and then the link will go up on YouTube, and we will reconvene. Thank you so much, Ellie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.